Very nice to see you, to see some familiar faces, and also to very happy on the part of the European Commission to be part of this birthday party. It's a very impressive event, and it reflects also, I think, the very impressive work that is done by PEROSH and its members. I mean, if we look back the 20 years, a bit like Frank did, and of course things have developed a lot. OSH was, like we heard also from Louis, and OSH has been a central part of the European project of the European labor market, even before the European Union, of course, but very much part during these 20 years of the development. I've had the pleasure to have different roles, often touching on health and safety at work, and I've seen this development, and I'll say a few words about that, and then try to link it also to the research and to the role of PEROSH. So, I mean, we had this development from the framework directive that was up here, and then all the more detailed legislation that in a way we could say from the 90s, during the 90s and a bit into the 2000s, and then from there on we then had a very stable and strong legal framework. But if I simplify it, the OSH dossiers and the discussion on OSH still was a little bit separated from the rest of European policy. It was a kind of a thing happening on the side, very technical and not super political in that sense. And as the European integration has sped up, and not least the last few years due to the several crises that we have experienced and are still experiencing, OSH has also become more central in the political debate. And we had the enactment of the Pillar of Social Rights, for example, where OSH has its own principle, and that was very important in a symbolic way. And we can see somebody like me who have been following many different files, we have seen that also due to some politicians like Jean-Claude Juncker and now Ursula von der Leyen, who have clearly a strong view and a strong attachment to health and safety at work, but also the commissioners that we've had more recently, Marianne Thyssen and Nicolas Schmit, we see that the politicians are really there, and they're very interested and committed to improving work environment. We also see, because of the strengthened role of the European Parliament in the institutional process in Brussels and Strasbourg, we also see that these issues become higher and higher on the agenda. And at the same time, if we look at reality, we have a very positive development, of course. If we look at all the legislation we've had on the chemicals, we know that we have from EU and national level improved the situations of hundreds and thousands of workers. We have reduced the accidents by I think different measures, 70%, let's say, and that is mainly done at national level. But of course, the EU level is an important driver here. How is this happening? Well, I think the legislation was important, but what we've seen during these 20 years has been an increasing policy cooperation on labor market and social issues. And in that, we are seeing that issues like mental health, but also issues like chemicals as well, is becoming part of the mainstream discussion. And we can also see that now when the biggest danger to the European economy, even more so, I think, to the Chinese economy, is the shortage of labor. And in that sense, and you might see that as a cynical economic factor, but that's often what drives development as well, it's more and more important that people are not off sick, that people can work, can be healthy, also not only from the fundamental rights perspective, but also from the pure economic perspective. So, and then we have the demographic development with needing to keep people longer in the workplace, which also is very closely OSH related. So with all of this, and I think supported by our OSH strategic framework that started in 2002 and that we then have renewed several times with the similar 3 priorities last time as the one that you have had as your leading principles here in PEROSH. I think that is also strengthened the cooperation. And we had the Swedish minister here earlier, and she of course hosted together with our commissioner the OSH summit here in Stockholm just a few months ago, which was one of the biggest events under the Swedish presidency on social and employment matters, which also shows that from the time that you described of I mean, with the crisis of the Swedish Institute to today, there is a big positive development as well. If we look at all of this, this is all positive. But the fact when OSH is becoming part of the political mainstream or being discussed by a lot of people who are not OSH experts, I think the scientific side of it and knowing what we're talking about and basing the political developments that are going faster and faster on sound, objective, independent scientific data is more important than ever. And here is where you come in. Because we really need now when I've been sitting in all of these, negotiations until early morning on the chemicals and the update of the carcinogens and now mutagens and CMDR directive, reproductive rights, the reprotoxin, sorry, there is a danger that we are leaving science and going very fast politically, and therefore your work and your independent work from the European policy process is very important, and I think we need to further, and that's a bit why I wanted to come here today as well, to signal that we need to also to use and to work closer together while keeping this independence, while keeping this a bit barrier between this very rapid political process and the development of sound data. And therefore I'm extremely impressed and pleased with your program that is during these days you will be dealing with all of these issues, all of the key issues. But if I look very simply at the speakers, these are not the same speakers that usually show up at an event in Brussels. And I think that's excellent because we see, and I'm very confident still about it, and I'm very positive about the European policy-making process. But we know, of course, that facts and politics, this process is changing fast. And if we look over the Atlantic, we have some scary examples there, and we could see it in the pandemic. And so I think this is something that will be crucial, because the success of OSH as a policy, its implementation on the ground, and its central role in the European projects will depend really on its sound basis. And I have followed many policy issues that have in a way backfired and not been respected at national level because there is this risk of over politicization or whatever you call it. So that's where you come in again, and that's why we really evaluate your work from the European Commission side. And I know that the colleagues in the team that work specifically on this in Luxembourg are very impressed and always look closely at your work, and I think William will say the same in terms of EU OSHA, and here, of course, I think we have a very sound division of tasks. For example, that EU OSHA is not doing scientific research, and that would again have been a very complex process. So I think we're on the right path, but I cannot enough, and I say this when I go to the national institutes at different events, I cannot enough underline the importance of your work. The only caveat or slight issue of improvement I see is how we make this more known, more used in the European debate. So I think, again, happy birthday, and I'm looking very much forward to the results of all your discussions here during these days. Thank you very much.